peeps? Welcome to episode 11 of Jacked, the official podcast of the SSBL. My name is Jay Watt alongside Fisek, who is unavailable for today's recording. So it's just going to be a solo cast. Just me, you guys listening to me ramble about what's going on in the SSBL. We just concluded week 11, so there's a lot to talk about, as well as, we had a Super Saturday. So typically for these types of episodes after that, we usually go over the standings, which with 2 weeks left in the regular season, I think it's a perfect time to go over the standings. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot that has happened in the last week, and there's this playoff race is really getting quite crazy, as I must say. We're going to start obviously with the Legends of Lumberjacks. Become division champions. They clinch that division this week. And that's what we expected to begin with. A lot of speculation at the very beginning of the season are the Vikings going to compete? Vikings have since fallen off, obviously, as we've talked about numerous times on this show, and the Lumberjacks finally clinch it. So the Lumberjacks do get themselves, as of right now, as it stands, they're the number 2 seed in the Heroic, with the Gauchos sitting at number 1, which the Gauchos, I believe, which I think mathematically it's not out of the question. Let's see. They're currently 10-3. Dragons are 9-6. So Dragons have they have one game. Yeah, so they have clinched. Gauchos are the officially the Evolution champions. So Gauchos getting that right now, sitting at first seed as division champions. And we looked at the Icons. The Icons division is where things are really getting very interesting at the top, as the Retrievers had a insane upset. The Liberty find a way to come back and defeat the Retrievers, and I would put this up there with the Angels and Stingers upset, to be truly honest with you. Liberty had no right to win this game. The Retrievers should have won this very easily, and it became very difficult to them to even get to where they were. They choked. It was just not a good game at all for the Retrievers, and the Liberty get their 3rd win of the season. But the Retrievers, that was a very crucial loss. That now moves them to 9-6. One game remaining on their schedule, which, if we look at their schedule, we're sitting at their last game being the Lumberjacks, which that's a big task, really. And with the overdraft sitting at 8-5, they have 3 games remaining. So depending on how the Retrievers and Lumberjacks game actually goes, we're looking. This game is this coming week. It's week 12, day 2. So it'll be the first game of that stream. So Lumberjacks Retrievers is the first game of the stream. Why is it not the game of the night? Because the Vikings and Knights, that actually the outcome of that is more important, in my opinion, of the overall landscape of the Heroic playoff picture, which we'll go ahead and get into that real quick, as we look at Vikings 6-7, Knights 5-8. For things to go right for either of these teams, they can't really afford to lose. The elimination number for the Knights is 2. The Vikings is 3. Luckily for both of these teams, the Wrong Fielders, they just came off a loss to the Gauchos. They play them again, and I think it's going to be a very similar situation, where the Wrong Fielders are not going to be able to beat the Gauchos. The Gauchos are just too strong of a squad. I don't see that happening at all. It's going to be so luckily for the Knights and Vikings. Well, unfortunately for Knights and Vikings, because they play each other, one of those teams, their elimination number is going to go to either 2 for the Vikings or 1 for the Knights. So if you're the Knights, if you lose this, you're done. I don't see any way that you qualify for the playoffs. there's just I don't think there's any way. We look at the wrong fielders who are currently sitting in the number 6 seed in the Heroic Conference, the Gauchos, Moonshots, Overdrafts. Okay, so I think there's one win there. I don't necessarily think they can beat the Overdrafts. The Overdrafts are struggling a little bit, but still they're sitting at 8-5 overall. Do I think, I mean, so if you look at it that way, wrong fielders, that's losing 2 and winning 1. That leaves them at 8-8 overall, based on just overall my opinions and projections for their last spurt of games this season. So it leaves them at 8-8. Let's just say Knights beat the Vikings. That moves the Vikings to 6-8. The Knights at 6-8. All right. So the Vikings final 2 games after they face, they face the Gauchos. Which, hold on. Am I is that day 1? I think that might be day 1. If that's the case, let's just scroll on over. Yes, so that's a big, okay, so that's even this game gets even crazier, because that should be an easy win for the Gauchos. So going into this matchup, it should be a 6-8 Viking squad and a 5-8 Knights squad, because I don't think the Knights play prior to this matchup, which, just looking real quick, no, they do not. It's just the Vikings as our next matchup. So yeah, going in, I'm suspecting, due to it being the Gauchos, 6-8 Vikings and a 5-8 Knights squad. So the Knights, if they win this, they move to 6-8. The Vikings will move to 6-9. Their hopes then start falling, because that's a massive matchup. Knights after that get the Walkers, which, as we've talked about, there are these gimme games. We do think this is more so of a gimme game for the Knights, but the Walkers could come out of nowhere and shock them. Their Walkers sitting at 3-10, but those 3 wins are all games that I don't think any of us actually thought would happen. I think, if I'm not mistaken, unless they are the Liberty and Moonshots, so, which actually they lost to Liberty. I forgot, that's the Biberty Gate. So their wins coming off of the Retrievers, the Vikings, their first 2 games, so they started off 2-0, then they beat the Moonshots 16-8. So looking at this, we're thinking this is really going to be a Knights victory. So let's say Vikings lose to the Knights at 6-8. And then the next game for the Knights is the Walkers, so moving to 7-8. This is where it gets crazy, because the final game of the regular season is against the Lumberjacks, which we just saw an incredible matchup between these 2 squads, to where it was a 6-5 final in favor of the Lumberjacks. And I think, it could be another close game where it's going to be the number 4s for both. Yeah, number 4s for both of these squads. So if we're looking at it that way, we have Baronies, and then on the other side we have Smalls. This is to me where I think there's a little bit of an advantage to the Knights in terms of the pitching. Obviously, the bullpen is not great whatsoever, but Dante Smalls getting the start at the number 4, facing a solid pitcher in Baronies, but a younger guy in the league. I give the slight edge to the veteran Smalls in this one, but it all comes down to how far can Smalls go in this game. Can he get 5, 6, even get pushed even further than that to 7 plus innings? That's where I think that's what the Knights need. It's on the road as well, so Lumberjacks get the home field advantage in that regard. But I think that's going to be a really close game. That's the final game of the regular season as well, if I recall. Yes, that is the final game of the regular season. Knights at Lumberjacks. So the final game potentially could tell us whether the Knights are going to get a play-in game against the wrong fielders, because with again, assuming the wrong fielders, end up going 1-2 1-2 and not losing to the Moonshots. If they go 1-2, they finish at 8-8, which would then eliminate the Vikings. So the Knights would basically be the final team to potentially force a play-in game in that heroic conference. So things in the heroic are getting very interesting. We still obviously that overdrafts, retrievers, trying to get for that top spot. That's still in play for the overdrafts. The overdraft's final games this season are the Liberty, which should be a win, Wrong Filters, which I'm predicting a win, and then the Vikings, also predicting a win. So I'm predicting that they're going to finish 3-0 in their final three. Anything can happen in the SSBL, but that's kind of what I'm thinking, which would move them to 11-5 overall. The Retrievers, with their final schedule, we're looking at the Lumberjacks as their final game, and I think the Lumberjacks are going to pull that one off more than likely. So that moves them to 9-7, gives the overdrafts the division championship and the Icons and the number 3 seed for the postseason, which also that could, depending on how the Dragons finish out their season against, I believe the Walkers is their final game, how they finish off that's looking at it, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure the Dragons have already clinched a playoff berth just looking at the numbers, because Vikings obviously have to lose one, and Dragons have to win, but I'm going to go and say Dragons are in the postseason. There's no way that they fall out of that. But Dragons, assuming they win against the Walkers, that moves them to 10-6. So assuming that the Retrievers lose, the Retrievers would be the 5th seed. So it would be a Dragons and Retrievers series in the first round of the playoffs, and then looking at the others, it'd be overdrafts and either Wrong Filters, Knights, depending on how things play. But that's really all we're gonna have truly in this final stretch. I don't think we're in the heroic we're gonna have any. We might have at most one play-in. I don't even think we're gonna have any type of play-in for the number 1 seed and whatnot. I don't think there's anything that's going to stop the Gauchos in that regard. Vikings, Wrong Filters, Walkers again should be a 3-0 stint there. So that's kind of where the heroic sits. And I again, the Knights are the team to watch here. There's a lot of factors going into it. The fact that the Knights and the Vikings play this week, the Knights should have beat the Vikings earlier this season. So technically, if they would have held on and not choked that game, we're sitting at 6-7 for the Vikings and 5-8 for the Knights. So flip flopping those two records there. But we're it's the SSBL, anything can happen, but the Vikings are not looking good in terms of where they're headed based on their final matchups. So the heroic picture is looking pretty solid. We're kind of getting a good idea as to who's going to be in, who's out. Obviously, we know the Express, Walkers, Liberty, and Moonshots, they're out. It's really coming down to Wrong Filters, Vikings, and Knights to see who makes the postseason. Unless the overdrafts have some crazy 3-game losing, it'd be more than 3 games, I think, at this point, from a losing streak perspective. Nope, they beat the Moonshots. So it'd be a 3-game losing streak. Don't see that happening at all. So it looks like we're getting a good idea of what the heroic conference looks like. Which, moving on to the Epic Conference. The Epic Conference is getting a bit spicy. By the way, I've never seen a suicide squeeze walk off in this game. I've seen suicide squeezes. Those happen. I've seen it happen. I've seen failed attempts. I've seen successful attempts, even from season 1 to now. I've seen it all, but I've never seen a walk off squeeze. So that was insane. Bombers now moved to 10-4. And they control, their own destiny here. Their last, they play the Sparrows this week, and then the last week of the regular season they play the Wildcats, where that's going to be, the biggest matchup, I think, almost outside of the Lumberjacks and Knights potentially, that's like one of the bigger matchups that final week of the regular season. Which, if we move forward to that final week, I mean, looking at it, Stingers High Rollers is another one that's the same day as Bombers and Wildcats. We have Liberty Moonshots that day as well, and then Overdrafts Wrongfielders on day 3, and then day 4, so Super Saturday, which will be the final 4 games of the regular season. Any tiebreakers will be played in that block 2, as well as both of the All-Star games for both the Chaos and Panic in the minor leagues, as well as the Epic and Heroic for the majors. Those will be played on Super Saturday block 2. But looking at that Super Saturday first block, I mean, big games, really Vikings Overdrafts, depending on how the Vikings do in their 2 games this week. That could be a decent game, as well as for what the Overdrafts end up doing. Ball Players and Serpents, that's the game of the night. Since it'll more than likely be like a morning or late morning, early afternoon for that slot. So Ball Players at Serpents, that'll be a big game. And then the final game of the regular season, Knights at Lumberjacks. But the Epic Conference, man, the Epic Conference is really becoming like very scary in the sense, not just because it's got some of the has the best competition overall. I mean, if you look at it, you have a 12-2 Stingers team, and you fall all the way to the current 6th seed with the Serpents. They're 9-4, so it's a complete difference between the Heroic, where Heroic 10-3 and your 6th seed is 7-6. So the Epic is just such a strong conference, and looking at it, the Bombers, like I mentioned, they kind of control their own destiny. They have what should be an easy win against the Sparrows. It's I believe Serpents who have a little bit. Serpents play the Skulls and the Sparrows first before they play the Ball Players. The thing with the Skulls game, and this is not just because I am the Skulls manager, the Skulls they have Pollo Ensalada on the mound, and I believe it is for the Serpents. It is a replacement for Khan, and I believe that is, I want to say it is, I think Mullins, I believe, is who they said was going to be pitching in this game. Let me just double check real quick in regards to this. Yes. So JT Mullins will be pitching for that squad. So Pollo Ensalada had a great showing against the Stingers, where JT Mullins, I don't know his stats. I'm actually about to pull that up to see kind of what his overalls are looking like. JT Mullins, an 88 velocity, 39 junk, and 83 accuracy. So he's a 210 pitcher. So he's not a bad pitcher at all. He is a righty. He does have just a 3-pitch arsenal as well, versus Pollo Ensalada, who is a lefty pitcher with a 4-pitch arsenal, 82 velocity, 87 junk, and a 96 accuracy, so a 265 pitcher. It just comes down really to, can these bats both teams have bats. The issue with the Skulls is they get runners on, they can't get them home. For the Serpents, they are one of the fastest teams in all the SSBL, so if they get on base, it's Pollo Ensalada's got to get the ball on the ground in the infield for some easy outs. We're striking them out as well. That's the key, is can these bats come alive, and can these runners actually get home for the Skulls to overcome the Serpents? Because that's been the Skulls kryptonite, is they get on base every single game. They put up 6-7 hits a game, but they score 0 or even just 1 run. So I'm saying that's a game to watch just because of the pitching matchup. So we'll see how that one goes. It's a very interesting matchup overall. But I don't know who I could really say is going to win that one. That's a very tough one to call, honestly. And that's not just me being biased towards the Skulls. It's just the pitching matchup. Pollo Ensalada did really well against the Stingers. Can he do the same against the Serpents? And Serpents are also without Khan and having JT Mullins on the mound. Can he come in and put on a performance? So that's a game to watch. And that game, I believe, is this week. Yes, that is week 2. It is known as I guess Lopside. The blowout of the night presented by Lopside Industries, which might actually not be much of a blowout. We shall see come day 2 this week. So looking at the overall picture, it's really the high rollers. That's one to talk about. They're sitting at 9-5. They're coming off the loss to the Serpents, which is such a detrimental loss for that squad, as they have just 2 games remaining, and they have a game against the Cyclones on the road. Cyclones, they have the worst luck, and in looking at their wins are one win one of their 3 wins is at home. It's against the Skulls of Rock. They beat the Skulls twice, so 2 of their wins are against the Skulls of Rock, the other against the Sparrows. I'm just saying, the Cyclones have been on the wrong side of it, and I think they're going to be on the wrong side of it as well with this game. I think the High Rollers will take this one, which will move the High Rollers to a 10-5 overall record. So if you're a High Rollers fan, you're probably a Skulls fan as well, because you want that Serpents team to lose to the Skulls of Rock. So I just think they're gonna need some help to make the postseason. The Sparrows should be an easy one for the Serpents, so I think the Skulls is the most difficult of those 2 between the Sparrows and Skulls. Skulls are the more difficult matchup for the Serpents. So if you're a High Rollers fan, you're rooting for the Skulls of Rock on that one, to try to push the Serpents to a 10-5 record as well, which will help you. But you're going to have to help yourself as well, as your final game of the regular season is against actually it'll be 9-5 and 10-5, so High Rollers will actually have a jump ahead, like a half game ahead of the Serpents in that regard, if that were to happen. However, if you're the High Rollers, you have to, in my opinion, you have to win out. You have to beat the Cyclones. You have to beat the Stingers. The Stingers is not going to be an easy matchup by any means. I mean, we're looking at the rotations here. We have Whitman on the mound for the High Rollers, and assuming that the Stingers don't change anything in regards to their rotation, it's Del Vecchio on the mound, which is something that is a scary sight to see if you're a High Rollers fan. So that's one of the matchups that is probably going to be, something that in my opinion, it's a must win. Again, I think the High Rollers need to win out to qualify for at least a play-in game this season, which it's the reigning champions. Can they do the unthinkable? And I'm going to call it the unthinkable at this point. Can they do the unthinkable? Can they get into the postseason via a play-in? And that's, will the Serpents miss the postseason for the 2nd straight season? We obviously still have the Bombers sitting at 10-4, so that division is not locked up by any means. I mean, a half game back is the Serpents, 1 game back is the High Rollers. The Bombers have Sparrows and Wildcats. Sparrows, as I mentioned, should be a pretty simple win for this squad. They beat them the first time 11-0 on the road. So at home at Emerald Diamond, I think it's going to be a very similar showing for that. It's just really that Wildcats game for the Bombers that's really going to be the game for the Bombers this season to really, are you going to be in a play-in? Because I think the Bombers are going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to make the playoffs without. I don't think they're going to have to be in a play-in necessarily, because I think if you win against the Sparrows, you almost lock up at least, I believe, the 4th seed at this point. Depending on how the ball players finish out as well. They have Stingers, Angels, and Serpents as their final games, and the ball players are going to have a different lineup as well, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of read off what to expect from the ball players for Week 12. Starting at shortstop, batting first, starting at shortstop is Matthias Black, followed by batting second, playing second base, Billy O'Connell. Batting third, playing first is Rick to the Stick. Third base is Patty Potts. DH is Papa Dog. Right field is Tucker. Left field is Barker. Catcher is Hands, and center field is Armstrong. So what we recognize here is that we went from 3 Thunders in the lineup and doing well to now no Thunders in the starting lineup. Will this really come back to bite May and the ball players in their final 3 games? I mean, that the 3 games, and you have 1 gimme. That gimme is the Angels. The other 2 you're gonna have to fight your tail off for against the Stingers and the Serpents. The Stingers game, that's for the division. Like, if you lose that, Stingers win the division, and that's as simple as that. Stingers win, they are the division champions, and more than likely the number 1 seed heading into the postseason. So ball players with a wonky different lineup, not too sure on how that lineup will actually perform, but I am very interested to see how they do against the Stingers this coming week, which that'll be on day 1, game of the night presented by Turtle Beach. As we're sitting right now, we're just gonna say, if the playoffs started today, what are the matchups? What are we looking like? Go back to the heroic. We have the Overdrafts and Dragons. Overdrafts being the number 4 seed, so they'll get the home field advantage against the Dragons as it stands currently, based off of win percentage. Win percentage over the Overdrafts is 61.54. And yes, I know that's 1 win over. I'm just going based off of winning percentage here. 8-5 Overdrafts, 9-6 Dragons. So win percentage advantage goes to the Overdrafts in this one. So a 4-5 seed matchup, Overdrafts versus Dragons. Then we would have Retrievers and Wrong Fielders, a 3 seed Retrievers versus a 6 seed Wrong Fielder squad. Winner of that one would face the Lumberjacks, which a Retrievers Lumberjacks series is kind of what I would predict out of that one, and I think that might be one of my favorite matchups of this postseason. Also, if the Dragons, defeat the Overdrafts and end up facing the Gauchos, that series this season between the Gauchos and the Dragons was probably one of the most entertaining for both of the games. So I think that's something to keep an eye out for as we get closer and closer to the postseason, are these matchups. And I think Dragons Gauchos will be a very fun one to watch. I think it'll be very entertaining for a best of 3 contest. Moving on to the Epic side, obviously I just mentioned just a little bit ago, the Stingers sitting at the number 1 spot, the Unicorns sitting at the number 2 spot. So how does the wild card side look? So wild card, we're looking at the ball players versus the Wildcats. Ball players sitting at number 4 seed, Wildcats sitting at the number 5 seed. I think this matchup would be an absolute bloodbath. This would go 3 games. I don't see this being a 2-0 sweep by any means. And I think this is really starting to become a rivalry between the ball players and Wildcats. I think these just are 2 teams that have fantastic players on their squad. Great history between both of these teams. This is starting to become a nice little rivalry between these 2 squads. And also winner of that one would face the Stingers. So if the ball players advance, then we're potentially getting like a nice division championship, as I will kind of call it, rematch between the 2, with the winner advancing to the Epic Conference Finals. Then on the other side of the bracket, the classic, the most prestigious, in my opinion, rivalry in all of the SSBL, the Bombers and the Serpents. That being a best of 3, that's going to be one heck of a series. And the winner of that faces the Unicorns, and that's what's so crazy about the SSBL, and especially the Epic, is like these divisional round matchups are going to be insane. It's absolutely nuts that we're sitting here 2 weeks away from finishing the regular season, and these matchups are very scary. I get like this crazy, like, nervous feeling in my stomach thinking about these matchups. And if Fisac was here, he'd probably be laughing at me right now. But things are really shaping up very well, and for the postseason, it's a very exciting time to be part of the SSBL. So if you are new here to the SSBL, make sure you join the Discord down below. It's in the description, as well as make sure you subscribe here on YouTube and then follow us on Twitch as well. That's twitch.tv/official SSBL. So make sure you do that to be aware of what's going on, what the league is saying, which brings me to the next topic that I'm going to talk about. We're cutting down, because it's just myself here. We're cutting down on what I'm going to be talking about today. So some of the segments are gone. Mojo Down is gone, so we're not going to be doing that. Panic and Chill, we're not going to be doing that. Overrated, underrated, that one's out. We're just going to go to league chatter, because there's one thing that Shag mentioned. I believe it was Shag. Let me just double check the jacked general chat real quick, and I want to say it was Shag, and I'm going to read what he said. My take is the Retrievers are the biggest play to your opponent's level team of all time, with results like, and he mentions bad results. Losing to the Walkers 5-3, only beating the Express 3-2, only beating the Liberty 4-3, only beating the Moonshots 6-5, losing to the Vikings 3-2, losing to the Angels 4-1, and then losing to the Liberty just this past week 6-5. Those are the bad showings that the Retrievers have shown this season. Obviously 3 of those 7 on that list are wins, but those wins were only 1-run wins against teams you should be blowing out. So that's I'm agreeing here with Shag, and that they are the biggest play to your opponents, because these are very bad teams. They're playing bad against these bad teams. You know, you could probably throw the Knights in there. I would say more so I would throw that on this one on the good side of things, which if you look at your good performances, your good results, you beat the Overdrafts 5-3. You lose to the Gauchos, but you make it competitive. It's a 3-1 loss. You then destroy the Overdrafts in your second matchup 11-3, and then you have a nice win over the Dragons 8-5. Throw in the Knights victory. What was it? I think 11-1 was the final score on that one, if I'm not mistaken. Where are we at here? Yes, 11-1, the final score between the Retrievers and the Knights. I throw that in there as well as a good win. Yes, the Knights squad is not the greatest of squads, but that is a win that the Retrievers absolutely needed, especially coming like back-to-back games from a streaming standpoint. We had Liberty Retrievers in day 2 this week, and then the first game of the next stream was Retrievers facing the Knights, and they just hammer them 11-1. So, you know, I think that throws in there into the good column. And to finish off his statement, the Doggies have the ability to play with the big boys, but constantly have trouble with the bad teams. A lot of close games and losses, too, against teams that they should be beating by 3+ runs. And with the Lumberjacks next week, I could see them pulling it out to further prove this theory. So Shaq thinks that this week on day 2, the Lumberjacks could be falling to the Retrievers, and the Retrievers, getting that win over the Lumberjacks, which would push them to a 10-6 record. I can see that happening. It is a home game for the Retrievers. Let's see what they're at from a record standpoint at home. We're looking at it. They have 1 win there, 2 wins, 3 wins, a loss. So we're 3-1, 4-1, 4-2, and 5-2. So they're sitting at 5-2 at home. So a solid home record. Their 2 losses at home being the Angels as well as being the Gauchos. Angels is not really one that you want to obviously lose, especially at home. But the Gauchos, we kind of expected that one, but still, it was one of the good results because of how close the game was. So with that being said, this matchup, I mean, Shag makes a very interesting point. This Retriever squad does play down to the opponents here, and the Lumberjacks. This is one of those the better teams where the Lumberjacks should be winning this game. However, will the Retrievers, show up just like they did on day 3 this week when they beat the Knights by 10? Will they show up and have a similar result? Not necessarily beating the Lumberjacks by 10, but will they, come in and with their bats on fire, their pitching staff showing up? Will that be, something that we see in this matchup? And I think Shaq makes a good point, and he sees that the Lumberjacks might fall and prove his theory right with the Retrievers winning this game. And looking at the FISAC also brings up a decent point as well, looking at their regular season records between the Lumberjacks and Retrievers. Lumberjacks, and even their all-time record, Lumberjacks won 7-5 in season 4, their first ever meeting. In season 5, the Retrievers won the regular season matchup 6-1, and then swept the Lumberjacks in the Heroic Conference Finals 11-2, 9-4, and 4-1. So absolutely destroying them in season 5. Retrievers then get another win in season 6, making it 5 games in a row that they had beat the Lumberjacks with an 8-7 victory. And then season 7, it's a 10-3 win for the Lumberjacks. So 2-2 in the regular season. The Retrievers lead the season series 5-2. So technically, history is on the Retrievers' side. But can they overcome a very dominant offensive performance by the Lumberjacks, which that offense is looking really nice with the the off-season additions of Kodiak Destroyer coming over. Well, that was a massive one, obviously, in season, getting Wrecked Dreams. Denver Brainstorm is still there. Phil Barco Jr., Speedy Gonzalez. There's so many elements of this squad that could really, put a beating to the Retrievers. But the Lumberjacks never won 2 games in a row against the Retrievers. So that's something to also consider heading into this matchup. Which, we're going to go ahead and head into week ahead. This is going to be a much shorter episode of Jacked, much shorter than normal. Usually it's around like an hour, but obviously I'm going solo on this one, and we'll just run with it. And we'll look at the matchups here. I don't have the prediction from FISAC on these matchups, but I'll kind of go ahead and give you my predictions as well as we head to these matchups. We're looking at week 12, day 1. So the first day this week on Monday, so just 2 days from when this is going live, we'll have the Ball Players at the Stingers. This matchup, I believe, if we look at the rotations, let's see, should be the number 2, I believe, for the Ball Players, and the number 3 for the Stingers. So we're looking at that. Then we have Leonard Northwest for the Ball Players, and then we have Robin Ryan for the Stingers. My advantage is Stingers. I think the Stingers take this one and they clinch the division. They get the number 1 seed on top of that as well. And I just think, especially with the update of the Ball Players lineup, I just don't think they can get past a Robin Ryan. I really think Robin Ryan has put on a really good season. His past few outings, I believe his last outing was against the Skulls, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong on that one, but I do know that that Robin Ryan has had some solid performances this season. I'm going to say the Stingers win by it's a 4-1 margin. I think it's not going to be a high scoring affair. I think I'm going to say 4-1 is the final in favor of the Stingers. Now, we go to day 2, and I think day 2 is probably, looking at it, probably the biggest day out of this entire week, because even though the Walkers are, a bad team, they're out of the postseason, they're not playing for anything outside of really just a lottery spot is all they're really playing for, and where they lie there. But Dragons Walkers is a historic rivalry in the SSBL, so I'm not gonna just say that that's a bad game to watch, because it's Dragons versus Walkers. It's a classic no matter what. I do think the Dragons will hand that. That's not the game of the night though. I'm just talking about this day in general because this day starts off with Lumberjacks Retrievers. We just talked about it. Shag mentioned as well that this could be the theory could be proved with the Retrievers defeating the Lumberjacks. I don't know. I think the Lumberjacks are going to take it, but I do kind of, understand where Shag is coming from, and I could see the Retrievers winning, but I'm going to go Lumberjacks. But the game of the night of this one is the Vikings at Knights. Obviously, Vikings play on day one against the Gauchos. Everyone thinks this is a loss except for Dean, and his wife, as we're gonna call his, even though he's called her his wife this entire time, but he said girlfriend the other day, or not, like engagement. I don't know. We're gonna just say that the Pulver House is the only two people in this that are going to be rooting for the Vikings and think the Vikings can win this. I think the Gauchos are going to win this, like everyone else in the league, which will move them further away from possibly making the postseason, which makes this game on day 2, Vikings at Knights, the SSBL game of the night presented by Turtle Beach. I'm going to say the Knights are going to get their revenge. They choked their last time against the Vikings. They had it, and Liam Freishak came in and just destroyed them with that walk-off home run. I really think that this Knights squad is going to get that win, and they're going to ride into the Walkers game, get a win there, and then it comes down to where their season might be, dependent on that final game of the regular season between the Lumberjacks. So I'm going Knights against the Vikings. I'm going to say the Knights actually put up, they're at home against the Swagger. I'm going to say they put up some runs. I'm going to say it's an 8-3 matchup, which, looking at it, that's the number 3 and the number 3 and the number 2. So let me just check real quick what that is. So that's Ishida for the Knights, and that is Hot Mike. This might be closer, but I do think this might be the time that Hot Mike gets blown up, to be honest with you. Hot Mike is known for that as well. He's either on or he's just completely off. I think that Hot Mike versus Ishida, Hot Mike, over, if you look at it on paper, might have the advantage there, but I just think the offense of the Knights is just too good, and I think they're going to overcome that Viking squad and Bruce Hot Mike in that one. But also on that day, we finish it with Skulls of Rock versus Serpents. Obviously, I'm biased. I'm going to pull for the Skulls of Rock with the upset. Everyone else, let me hear I would love to hear your own opinions in the comments below. Leave it off Discord. Let's put them in the comments here. I want to see what you guys have. Skulls of Rock, Serpents. Who wins that game? It is Pollo Ensalada versus JT Mullins. It's just something to consider within this matchup, because the Skulls do have the bats to do it. It's just a matter of getting actually the runners that they get on base. Can they get them home? Moving to the final day of the week, day 3. This one, as it stands right now, it's Gauchos at Wrong Fielders is the game of the night. But to be honest, I might even consider High Rollers at Cyclones the game of the night because of what it really means for the High Rollers. Should the High Rollers win this matchup? Yes, absolutely they should win this matchup. But this is a must win for the High Rollers. They cannot lose this matchup. So I almost want to say that might be the game of the night, but right now Gauchos at Wrong Fielders, because the Wrong Fielders, especially seeing how the day before with the Vikings and Knights, if the Knights end up winning that, the Wrong Fielders need something to help them out, and upsetting the Gauchos might be that thing. So that's why we're currently sitting at Gauchos Wrong Fielders as game of the night for day 3. I say the Gauchos take it pretty easily. They won 5-0, I believe, the other day. I'm going to say it's very similar. We are at Colonial Plaza, so I'm going to give the Gauchos a few more runs. I'm going to say it's 7-2 in favor of the Gauchos. And then at the end of the night, we have Sparrows at Bombers on that day, and Bombers should easily beat the Sparrows at home. So I just rambled for 45 minutes by myself, so that was really cool. So we are coming to a close here on episode 11, which obviously towards the end of the episode we announce our winners of the Turtle Beach headset. And since Fisek is not here, which actually, you know, we'll bring Fisek on here real quick. Let's let him do the drum roll. All right, Fisek, hit me with the drum roll. All right, the winner of the Turtle Beach headset this week is Elder. Elder, thank you for participating and being in the league and, you know, helping us out from the league office. You have a lot of great suggestions, and you know, you really help us from the league office perspective improve the league. So thanks for always being there for these game of the nights. You are the winner. Make sure you do send me your mailing address and everything so I can get you that headset sent out from Turtle Beach themselves. And thanks, Fisek, for the drum roll and doing your thing. So that's going to be it for me. Thanks for watching. This is episode 11 of Jacked, the official podcast of the SSBL. My name is JWatt, alongside Fisek. We'll see you next time. Keep on rigging, everybody.